Hi guys, I'm back with one of my most popular recipes. This is a mushroom quiche. You can serve it any day, anytime. So let's get started with the short crust pastry. And I highly recommend that you weigh out your flour and butter for this. I have to mention I messed up with the flour measurement. I was supposed to go to 300 grams, but I stopped at 200. And you'll notice that I didn't have enough crust for my pie, but in the blog it's all there. Now I'm also going to measure my butter. You need like 100 grams of butter. And the easiest way, you can do this by hand, but the easiest way for me now is to just put it into a food processor. The other thing you want to make sure is that you have really cold butter. Mine started to melt. It was a little hot that day, but it's preferable if you have really cold butter that you cut into cubes and then pulse into a very crumbly kind of sand-like texture. You can certainly do this by hand, but I just find using the food processor easier. You can control how much you do it and you kind of handle it less. The trick with short crust pastry is not to knead or handle it too much. This is the kind of texture that you're looking for. And then you'll add an egg and a couple of tablespoons of cold water. Ice cold water is preferred again because you don't want to melt the butter. And then keep processing until it forms into a dough. Now you want to take that dough and turn it over onto a floured surface. And as you can see here, I'm not kneading it. I'm just kind of playing with it and making it into a ball. And that's pretty much what you want to do before you cover it with plastic and put it into the refrigerator to rest for at least 20 to 30 minutes. While the dough is resting, it's a good time to saute the mushrooms. Here I've taken some butter and I'm going to add some chopped onions to that, and until they get like sweated out and let them get a little translucent. To that I will add my mushrooms. Now obviously fresh mushrooms are preferred, but since those are not that easily available here, I went with canned mushrooms. Canned mushrooms work. They won't taste as well, but you can use any mushrooms you want. I'm adding some seasoning here, salt, pepper, and then some cayenne pepper, some tarragon, and some thyme. So just cook it until the mushrooms are tender, and then you can set it aside and let it cool down. Now we'll move on to our savory custard, and for that, in a bowl, you will break 3 eggs. And of course, whisk them well. To that, you will be adding your cream, which is half a cup of cream and half a cup of milk. Followed by some freshly grated nutmeg and more cayenne pepper, garlic powder, and your salt and pepper. You can add your sauteed mushrooms into this egg mixture, and this is optional, but I like to add some bologna. This is just the K&N's chicken bologna. You can also use turkey or beef bacon or whatever other kind of deli meat that you want to add, and just set this aside, put it in the fridge. Now it's time to blind bake our pastry. I'm just prepping the dish so that the crust doesn't stick to the bottom. So this is just some parchment paper that I measured out. And now we're going to bring the dough out and roll it. So I'm just going to make sure that I have it well covered with the flour so that it doesn't stick anywhere. And I'm going to roll it to about like a 1/4 of an inch thickness. And just to make sure that it covers the base and sides of the pan. Now, if you remember, I didn't put enough flour, so I did have a little bit of trouble filling up the sides. So as you can see, I used a rolling pin to help me get the crust into the pan because it is a very fragile kind of a crust, and that just ensures that it doesn't fall apart. And now I'm going to start putting it and pinching it to the sides. Now, to make up for the parts that I didn't have enough crust for, A very easy little tip is to just cut off the places where there is excess and then sort of just pinch it and fix it into the places where you might not have enough. And that way I kind of made up for it. It's not perfect, but it's okay. Quiche is meant to look a little rustic. And of course, if you use the right measurements, then this is not going to happen. I do not know what I was thinking at that time. Anyway, make sure to take a fork and poke some holes, and this is how you blind bake. You're going to take some foil and then some pie weights. If you don't have pie weights, do what I'm doing. Take some dried kidney beans or chickpeas, garbanzo beans, and use that and put it into the oven for about 10 minutes so that the crust is par baked or half baked. After letting it rest for a couple of minutes, we can add our shredded cheese to it. This is a cup of cheddar. You can use Gruyere or Swiss, whichever is available or suits your fancy. This will be your bottom layer, and on top of that, you will pour over your savory egg custard mix with the mushrooms. Now, let's bake. Make sure you bake it for 40 to 60 minutes or until you get a nice golden top, and your quiche is ready to be served. For the full recipe, make sure to visit the Ghee Shakar blog. I'll mention it down below, and like, comment, and subscribe to the channel.